Hello and welcome to another episode of Andy's Chomping at the Bit, brought to you by Big Andy Media, the official sponsor of most of the Andy's Chomping at the Bit episodes. So, today is the first official audio exclusive version of Andy's Chomping at the Bit. Before today, it was also primarily on video. So, I decided today's topic will be it'll be a comparison, actually, talking two topics here. So, I'm going to focus on talking about contentment, but I'm addressing it in the sense that a lot of people get contentment and complacency confused, and they interchange the words, but they are very, very different as far as I understand it. So when I think of complacent, I think of someone who is happy with where they're at, but they have no intention of growing from there. They are perfectly happy not doing any more work, just settling with where they're at. And I don't think that is healthy, personally. And that's how I used to be for my 20s, I'd say. Most of my 20s, I was very much in that complacent mentality. Actually, I'll even go as far as saying my early 30s, I was that way as well. But contentment, being content has more aspiration to it. You're ambitious when you're content also. So when I look at content, I see it as I am happy with where I'm at right now, but that doesn't mean that I want to stay where I'm at right now. A great example of this is with Big Andy Media. I'm very content with the progress that I have made since starting Big Andy Media. I'm very content with the pathway that it's heading, the opportunities that are starting to present themselves. But by no means do I want to be where I'm at right now, a year from now. It's great to be here right now because it's earlier in the process. It's a building and learning experience. But long term, I want to continue growing and building Big Andy Media. And I can apply the same principle to my personal well-being, my health, and my recovery. A year ago, or let's go even further back, let's say 2 years ago, I was doing pretty well right now in my recovery with addiction. All things considered, But I would not be happy to go back to that point in my recovery, because I've learned a lot from then till now. I have grown a lot from then to now. So I was content at that point in my life as far as the recovery goes and as far as personal growth. But I have continued to grow since then. That's the difference in my eyes between complacent and content. Complacent, I would have been like, I'm great where I'm at. I'm not going to ruin a good thing. I think that's toxic, and that, in my mind, that's the difference for a lot of people in recovery between those that successfully stay clean and sober and those that relapse. Those that change their life in a way that they aren't just able to fit and function in society, but actually contribute to society. People that become a healthy presence to society instead of a burden. I mean, there's other differences as well, but that, in my mind, that's the big one. If you decide to simply rest on being clean and sober, and you don't make the other changes in your life, you're really not fixing the problem. Especially, I'm going to focus on addiction on this one here, this particular point. Addiction isn't simply using the drugs or whatever else you were addicted to. The using is a symptom of a bigger problem. It's a symptom of the disease. The using itself is not the disease. It's part of the compulsive, self-medicating, self-treatment that comes with addiction and some of the traits that come with it. But anyway, going back to the tie with contentment and addiction, and those that are successful with their recovery, it fuels us when you want to change, when you all of a sudden aren't doing it because you need to, you have to, you're doing it because you want to, and then you start enjoying the change, you start enjoying the benefits. It's really, it creates something that, if I'm being honest, had I not struggled with active addiction at any point in my life, I realistically would not have taken the time to better myself in the ways that I have. I wouldn't have seen the significance of it. I wouldn't have had the desire to. I would have been happy. I was complacent before my active addiction started, and I was complacent obviously during my active addiction as well. And I feel that a lot of people are complacent in life. They have the mentality, and it's an understandable mentality. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But my mentality has changed, not just recently. It's changed, 2.5 or so years ago now. It's changed where it's no longer, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's now, it might not be broken, but how can we improve it? How can we make it more efficient? How can we make things better? And how can we do it the right way? And that's a big factor. There's a lot of ways you can make things easier, cutting corners. But that doesn't go well in my mind with being with striving to better yourself. That's kind of a complacent mentality in a way. It's like, I don't really want to put in the energy, the effort to change. I don't really feel the need to push and improve. I embrace the approach that goes with being content. And sometimes it's hard to, it can be hard to be content, and I'm not above struggling with that in certain areas from time to time. Overall, I am content with where my life is at, without a doubt. I am content with where Big Andy Media is right now. There are certain aspects of it that I do get frustrated with, and that's part of growth, I think. I'm not positive, but that's how I'm approaching it right now. That the frustration is still part of the process. It's within the learning curve, and part of that old part of me still wants to, get upset when things don't work out in that, but it's a lot easier now to simply trust the process. I've trusted this process now as far as being patient, as far as continuing to learn. When I get knocked down, getting back up. When things don't go my way, adjusting and proceeding. The process has showed a lot of promise, especially in my personal life, with family, with friends. It's made an amazing impact in my life. So I have to sometimes step back and remind myself that it's okay to get frustrated in those moments, but that's not a reason to stop. That's not a reason to quit. That's not a reason to throw your feet back and throw your feet up and relax. It's don't get me wrong, you got to take some time for yourself too, here and there, and pause. But quitting is a completely different topic in that situation. One of those frustrations that I get is usually on the financial side. And I have to remind myself that I have a choice. I always have a choice here. I could very easily throw my hands up and go with the safe route. The safe route would be, I've got an amazing background and experience in IT, information technology. Technology in general just comes natural to me. I could go that route. And I would make decent money doing that. I would make a comfortable living, and I would be very efficient at it. It'd be stable income, long-term stable income. But I don't enjoy IT. And I didn't realize that when I first went into it, but I finally, over time, figured it out. And I think part of it is the disconnect from IT, especially now with so much stuff being remote. People love that as an option, but there's not enough connection for me with that. I hate sitting exclusively behind a computer and troubleshooting and problem solving. Don't get me wrong, I love solving puzzles and I love troubleshooting and problem solving. I just don't like to do it constantly behind a computer. I like to be able to use my creative side, not just in that extent, but also to be to express. That's what I love about creating. That's why I created Big Andy Media. And I knew that I had the option between IT and going out on a limb and going into a world where I have a lot of skills for. I got the degree in broadcasting. I've got experience as far as performing, singing, being on the air. I have that experience. And I can use some of my tech experience for learning some of the new softwares. One of the projects that Big Andy Media is going up on, and it's taking longer than I originally thought, but I'm invested in it, and I am excited for it, and I am making the adjustments to make it happen. And that is I have two projects, two animated series that will be coming up. I can't give you a timeline anymore because it does change. I thought it would have already been airing at least one of them by now, and that's part of the process, learning that it takes more time sometimes than I was expecting. But I had the option. Like I said, I could go to IT and it's an easy, locked in hours paycheck. But I decided to take a chance on me. I spent a lot of my life avoiding that. The one time I had previously taken a chance was to be a singer-songwriter, and I guess I can confidently say that I didn't actually take a chance on me. What I did was I pursued that, and I spent the entire time outside of recording, the actual album, talking about the problem with the industry, talking about what I wasn't good at, and why I wasn't succeeding, and looking for a plan B, C, and D in case it did not work. I never spent enough time working on plan A. I never got out of the door and actually went to venues, went to restaurants, and actually asked them for the opportunity to perform. I had someone mention that I performed to someone, and they asked if I was any good, and I said, yeah, I'm not bad. That's not a way to sell yourself, for one. Nobody wants someone who's not bad to perform. And if I'm being realistic, and it's not, I used to feel guilty for saying this, and it's not a matter of guilt because I'm by no means shunning or shaming someone who isn't at this. I am a very talented musician, especially when it comes to the singing side of things and the songwriting. I will say that I'm not the greatest piano player, but I play good enough to do live performances. But I wouldn't say that at that time. I was spending the whole time downplaying the significance of what I did and looking for why I was failing. I blamed the industry and technology. Well, those definitely did change the way things are. No doubt about it. They also opened doors, and they changed the way that you have to approach things. I, being honest, was lazy the first time around. Clean cut, lazy. And that goes with complacency. I made the album, I'm like, great, it'll sell itself. Doesn't work that way. For some people, it might. It didn't for me. You got to put in some work. But this time around, when I get frustrated, I stopped looking for excuses. One of the excuses I'd previously used is I didn't know the business side of the music industry. Guess what? I don't know much of the business side at all still of the music industry or media in general. But guess what I'm doing? I've got Big Andy Media going. I have fallen on my face more times than I would like to admit on this. But I can proudly say that I keep getting up. I can proudly say that when I fall, I get up, I brush myself off, and I try to learn why I fell. Sometimes I do, sometimes I have to fall a second or third time before I get a better understanding. That's part of the process. And that's not just with Big Andy Media, that's with life. So as far as content, yeah, I'm content that I haven't given up. I'm content that I am still putting one foot in front of the other. And even though I trip over my shoelaces here and there, I still get up and keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's part of the process. Content with where you're at, but still ambitious enough and determined enough to grow and keep going and pursuing what you are pursuing, to continue chasing your goals. That's the beauty of being content. And I very similarly put contentment and happiness in the same conversations. A lot of people confuse happiness with joy, with pleasure. I don't see happiness as close to those as it is to contentment. I see happiness as more of a state of mind as well, compared to an instant feeling. But going with the contentment, it's not always easy if you take that mindset. Because it means that you know that you're going to still face hard times. Because when you're growing doesn't come easy all the time. You have to go through things that are uncomfortable. You have to go through pains, not always physically, but there's other forms of pain. Sometimes there's a mental, emotional, spiritual pain. You get knocked down, you get up. Sometimes you run into some crooked people that really ratchet you and take advantage of you, and they want to keep you down. But you keep going, and you don't let those moments take away from you. You don't quit because of those moments, and you know they're going to keep coming. You know those kind of things are going to still come up in life, whether it be professionally or personally. But how do you respond? You can be happy with where you're at, complacent. You can be miserable, discontent, no matter what you have, no matter how far you've gone, no matter how much you've gained and worked. You're never satisfied. You're never okay. And I can tell you that that's not that pleasant either. That'll actually tie in with next week's show, which is going to be loneliness. And discontent goes really hand in hand with loneliness. But I'll explain that, like I said, next episode. But I'm going to wrap up today. I'm going to keep it a little shorter than usual, which is good. I'm going to try to keep them under 20 minutes going forward. So like I said, today's episode was on the comparison between contentment and complacency. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you again. Let's see. What's next? Friday. Next Friday is the 8th. I will see you again on August 8th. And as always, you can still go to YouTube and Facebook to check out the Daily Biscuits. If you aren't familiar with the Daily Biscuits, they are every Monday and Wednesday, little trivial tidbits. They're originally within the Andy's Chomping at the Bit podcast, but when I decided to go exclusively audio, only these once-a-week segments are going to be on the audio only. You're still going to have the Daily Biscuits, as of right now, as the video option on YouTube and Facebook. So, thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys next week.